I am a retired Navy captain. I served 28 years on active duty. One of my last duty stations, I was the Chief of Staff for Naval Service Training Command. We were responsible for everyone who joined the Navy except for the Naval Academy. We had 90,000 students located worldwide. When I retired from the Navy, we moved to Madison, and we moved into a condo in downtown Madison. Within 2 months, I was being asked to run for the condo board, and then when we actually had the condo board elections, not only did I get elected to the board, but I was elected president. So being the condo board president for a large association, probably over 700 residents, I had a lot of relationships. A lot of people got to know me. It was basically like being the mayor of a small town. People saw that I not only could be elected by my neighbors, but that my neighbors appreciated my leadership. It was my neighbors who encouraged me to run, but most particularly the former county supervisor for District 1 was Scott McDonald. So when he became the county clerk, I ran in a special election to fill the seat that he vacated.
Mary Kolar and I became buddies like early on, and she worked on my campaign, and when I ran for county clerk, I was just at her condo making phone calls, using it as my campaign office, and her and Scott were like just really close. We were, you meet people when you're doing doors and in the community, and they become your lifelong friends. And then I remember, I think she watched what it took to run, and she realized I can do that. And so I was very much encouraging her to run for my seat, and helped her. And now look, she's a secretary. And if you think about what District 1 has produced, it's kind of impressive. Tammy Baldwin, Mark Bocan, Mary Kolar. It's for some reason this neighborhood right around the Capitol produces a lot of people who end up doing things. Both my mom and dad were in county government, so I sat in the back of the room while my dad was, running meetings. We didn't have video games back then, so I had to listen to what was happening, and I think their example inspired me.
I had been encouraged to run for the county board by folks in my community, and I said no to an awful lot of people who asked me to consider running for the county board because, quite frankly, I've always seen myself as a mom first, and I was very involved in my community and my neighborhood, but really more in a behind-the-scenes kind of way. I'm very introverted, so the thought of going out and knocking on people's doors and raising money and going to meetings seemed really intimidating and overwhelming to me. But there was a day that my two sons, my two oldest sons, they were in elementary school. They came home from school and they told me with a bellyache kind of feeling that their teachers told them that they needed to go out and do some community service. And I sat my little boys down on the couch and started having a conversation with them about how when your community reaches out to you and asks you to step up and do something for the betterment of everyone, that it's okay to be uncomfortable and it's okay to not want to do it, but to realize that it's important to answer that call. And as I was having that conversation with them and facing their petulance on firsthand in only the way that young children can really deliver to their mothers, I realized that I had also been acting in a really petulant way to people in my community who had been asking me to rise up and consider serving in a new capacity, even though it was going to make me really uncomfortable. And I had one of those moments that I think many of us have had where you start feeling like all the blood is leaving your extremities. And I realized that actually the lecture that I was giving my boys about going and doing a little community service for a homework assignment that their teachers had given them was really a lecture that I needed to hear myself. And I think that was a real turning point for me in realizing that I should consider running for county board, and in fact, I ended up making the decision to do it. And it wouldn't have happened without my kids really teaching me that lesson.
I worked in government and in politics for many years before I ran, and had seen the need for more women leaders in government and had encouraged women to run. But in 2010, there was an opening on the county board, and a woman in a district next to mine, who's now a state representative, Diane Hesselbein, reached out to me and said, you should run for this. And I, at the time, really said, I don't know that I can make that work in my life. And she came back to me and said, how can you tell women to run for office if you won't run? And she was so right. I mean, I have been encouraging women my whole life to seek leadership and to run for office. And I'm glad that she convinced me to do it. It was the right move, but she helped put me over the edge to say yes, because it's a hard decision to run for office and to really expose yourself to the kind of work that's involved in running for elective office, but it's been worth it. It's one of the most gratifying things I ever did. I felt like I was lifted up by friends and family and my community in a way that you really feel like people are there for you in a way when you're running for office often. And I felt like that I had friends who were supportive. I felt like my community was supportive. I have, in my history, have seen so often that women weren't stepping up and taking leadership roles for reasons like I said. They had family commitments and work commitments that really they didn't feel would allow them to. And I've really worked hard to help women run. I helped create an organization before I moved to Wisconsin to help women be trained to run for office, and have helped work with an organization here to train women to run for office, because it's so important to let women know that they can say yes and be supported in their efforts. So I think that's really, and I have to say I've been so gratified to see that we now have parity of women on the county board. It's important that our elected offices, people who are elected officials, represent the community, and in that regard we now do.
Neighbors saw that I was full of energy, I was engaging, I was positive, and so they asked me to run for office, a neighborhood association. And so I said, okay. My mom was the president, Linda Hoskins, and they just saw this young, full of energy woman who moved in the neighborhood. And so in the daytime, I was a probation parole agent. But in the evenings, I spent all my time volunteering for the neighborhood. And they saw that my work ethics was good. They believed in me, so they asked me to run for office. So that's literally how I ran for office. It was neighbors asking me to be their voice. And I did accept that call. And I ran against the former neighbor, who was a two-term incumbent, which made it very, very difficult.
I ran for city council in 1974 and then ran in 1980 for the county board. At that point, I had been president of the Marquette Neighborhood Association for a little bit, and the former supervisor, Mike Nowakowski, was stepping down, and so Bill Boss Thompson encouraged me to step in and run for his seat. But it was the spirit of that neighborhood activism of trying to save parts of the city that other people maybe felt almost should be abandoned. That was really a motivating factor, and that also stemmed from my work on historic preservation earlier in the Mansion Hill neighborhood, and trying to preserve the Period Garden Park over in that neighborhood. So.
Think about people in your life who you do think that are making a difference and cheer them on. A lot of people will never think, oh, I should run for office, unless they are asked to run for office. I wouldn't have done it if people hadn't asked me to run for office. And if the other people didn't believe in me and cheer you on. This is not, being an elected official is not a one and done. It's a community effort. It's about building a team and having people that believe in you, and yourself believing that the world can be a better place with a little bit of work.